Hi, y'all. We're excited to have you here. We want to welcome you to Flatiron School's Intro to UX UI Product Design Decoded. My name is Corey Mickelson, and I am the Marketing Events Coordinator here at Flatiron School. A big part of my job is hosting free introductory workshops like this evening's event to give you all an opportunity to meet some of our instructors and get more of a feel of the Flatiron School experience. I also host another series called Tech in 20, where we take 20 minutes to discuss hot topics within the tech industry. So a quick little reminder, we're going to be using the chat as the main source of communication for the evening. So make sure that little blue button is set from host and panelist to everyone so we can all chat together. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our host for the evening, Scott. He is one of our lead product design instructors. Go ahead and take it away, Scott.
Yes, it is so nice to speak with everyone. Just to tell you a little bit about myself so that you have an awareness of who would be teaching you in this program. I'm one of a few instructors. I am a UX UI product designer, and I have 5+ years of experience working on various client projects in the financial, retail, education, technology, and healthcare industries. And my experience has been sort of split in both agency and freelance work, which I would say has led me to work adaptively. Now, I have designed digital products and experiences for clients such as the Coca-Cola Company, Citibank, E-Trade, United States Tennis Association, and other brands. And most recently, I worked on a freelance project for a lendage company. Freedom Mortgage, that's the name of the company. Each one has its own experiences, has its own advantages, disadvantages, and there are an eclectic and eccentric range of industries and companies within those industries. Each one you will have your own experience, and always happy to talk about it too. So let's get started. This is just an introduction to UX design, which is a part of product design for that matter. Product design is essentially a cocktail mixture of both UX and UI design. Now, I would start to describe that, UX design and product design is really all a matter of experiences in sort of your involvement in designing experience, because you are essentially designing for people's emotions. You want essentially to work and sort of develop a product that is emotionally packed, so that a person becomes invested, that they invest their time in a product or service that you have worked on, that you have developed, and for that matter, have delivered out in the market. And so for that matter, I would like you to think about sort of an experience that sort of emits feelings of love for that matter. Can you say what it is? What about it did you love? What is your favorite part of it? And what left the biggest impression? It's essentially like that part, what leaves the longest impression on your life, or for that matter, that we essentially want to control, or for that matter, to design for, to have that effect, to create that sensations of delight rather than frustrations. I'm curious, is there, can anyone talk about a recent experience? Or rather, it doesn't need to be a recent experience. Rather, it could have been an experience, from years ago that, still remains a permanent fixture in your life. Not that anyone is required to answer, though. I always think it's helpful sort of to contribute an answer, even a simple yes or no. I'm always appreciative of a roaring silence. I am checking the chat, so if anyone wants to volunteer, though, I'm like thinking, I'm thinking of a time before the self-imposed, the quarantine and the coronavirus. I had gone on a trip to Ibiza that was full of amusement, a little hysterical, and definitely left an impression on the rest of my life. And what I loved about it is that I went with loved ones and my friends. Certainly I got to know them even better in traveling to Ibiza. Favorite part was there were so many, so much color and livelihood to Ibiza. It was amazing, and it did definitely leave a good impression, a big impression on my life, especially because it was right before the coronavirus. In any case, let's get going. So, with UX, the focus of it is on the enhancement of a product, user experience with the product. Like I was saying, again, we essentially want to design product and services that, someone will essentially engage like a human being. Oh, excellent. I just read that comment. Yes, baking. I'm almost curious, like, can you recall what is the favorite thing that you baked? Or is there a specific bake that is your favorite? That's awesome. In any case, with products, people want to treat the products and services like human beings for that matter. They don't necessarily want to interact with a stoic product or service. It's something that can be invested with feelings, and preferably with feelings of delight. It's when I continue to reference sort of delight, because it's not that you necessarily want to design for a bad experience, or rather, if you do design for a bad experience, how to recover from a bad experience. It's never that you want to leave someone frustrated. And so, that's where we get into that engagement is an explicit goal. We want essentially something to be addictive, that they have to, revisit, though, there are positives and negatives to addictions. So, and here I just have two quotes from, some foundational UX designers. And so we have Donald Norman, for that matter, the quote that he said, user experience encompasses end user's interaction with the company, its service, and its products, for that matter. The products and services that are out on the market, for that matter. And it's not necessarily a quick process. There is an entire and lengthy workflow, though of course that's ultimately dependent on, say, the budget, the scope of the project. There's really a lot to think about. Now, it's really this quote that I find to be the most impactful, for that matter, because, people think, with design, or for that matter, with UX and UI design, that it's entirely focused on visuals, on sort of creating a beautiful piece of artwork. Now, the thing about that is that ultimately what you want to design, you want to design something that creates a great experience, though, that is also invisible, something that someone doesn't really have to think about, because it's so clear, so easy. You don't want to add complications. You don't want it to sort of create questions or necessarily a lengthy conversation, because it's so easy to use. So always designing for ease of use. So, I'm going to give a few examples where, inquiring whether something is well designed or not. So in this instance, let me just add some context. The truck is stuck. I don't know whether that's necessarily apparent, though. Thinking to yourself, is this a good experience? Is this a bad experience? Have you been in a similar experience? Ultimately, like, how do you think the driver is feeling about this? Could it be sort of a complexity of feelings? Frustration that, they are stuck, that there's no alternative way of getting out other than calling, say, the police. It looks like there's a police officer there, in order to get unstuck, for that matter. Maybe they're actually happy about this because they weren't looking forward to wherever they were going. And this just allows them more of a time to relax, maybe a bit of a respite after, who knows, a deluge of hours of driving. What do you think? What kind of feelings do you think the driver is experiencing? Do you think that it's sort of more attracted to feelings of anger, delight? Is there sort of feelings in the middle? Yeah, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, all of that. Any other feelings? I mean, like really ultimately, self-doubt. Yeah, I mean, do you think in any way that this could be a positive feeling? Yeah, I mean, I I don't see any reason though. I mean, of course, we would have to speak to the driver to see how they're feeling about it. Now, the better question is, not a lot of design. I mean, there we go. Yes, that is such a good reason, though. Thankfully that bridge was low enough that it would stop it from hitting the dog. Yeah, that as well. Yeah, so I think like more importantly, what we have to think about. Uh, Austin, yeah, but hold on, I just want to touch on this. Like inevitably, like with design, it's not that you necessarily want to design for a niche category of people. You want to design for a large demographic. Like in defining your target demographic, it's preferable to sort of expand rather than to narrowly focus on it, like with military precision for that matter. And so maybe in your design, you would have to take into consideration that kind of person that has a holistic ideals for that matter and feels optimistic rather than only people that would say feel negative about this experience. Like, how could you make it better for that person that has a holistic experience? Now, inevitably, like, let's just think to ourselves, yes, so we have defined that this is a bad experience. Now, what would be a possible solution to avoid this kind of incident from happening again, for that matter? This is where you become a UX designer, UI designer, because there's something to think about a solution. Then what about the actual implementation of that solution? That's where the UI designer may come involved, or the product designer. So yeah, though, that's great. Where would you put the sign? Or would there be more than one sign? Would there be like a sign, like say 10 miles up the road for that matter? Because inevitably it's always helpful to have sort of reinforcement, repetition. An acronym for design is CRAFT. And it stands for this is like sort of fundamentals, is contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And for that matter, if we were to sort of, see how that would fit into this kind of scenario, certainly with repetition, if you have more than one sign, proximity would be closer to the bridge, alignment, the exact positioning, and contrast, really making sure that it stands out. If it is a sign, who knows, maybe it's a digital banner. Yeah, I mean, all of those are possible solutions. Of course, through experimentation, we would have to determine what is the most feasible for that matter, and for that, the most effective. And then, we have doors. What do we think about doors? Like, have you always had a good experience with a door, or have you had any bad experiences? Is a door a good or bad design? There are no wrong answers. It's sort of just evaluating your own experience with the door. And I mean, are we talking about a literal door or, yeah. Yeah, thank you for contributing your feelings and perspectives. This is so helpful, you know. Yeah, I mean, like, just know, like, how would you make a door better? Would it be a sign for that matter in terms of the direction that the door opens or closes? Would it be that all doors for that matter act the same way? You know, that for example, all doors are push as opposed to pull, so that there isn't any confusion, you know, as to the direction that they open or close for that matter. Oh yeah, I could imagine. I could see how anxiety, you know, revolving doors could cause anxiety, you know, because of the close quarters that people are constricted in a small space. Yeah, I mean, all of this is possible. You know, something to think about. Oh, yeah. And let's look at this trash can. Um, do you think this trash can is well designed? Um, I think I saw someone in New York, so you would be familiar with this style trash can. This is in New York, yeah. I mean, yes, I love it. So assertive with the no. Now, more importantly, can you sort of back that up? Like, why are you saying no? Or for that matter, yes. You know, what about it is well designed? If it isn't well designed, why is it that experience? Now, let me just quickly ask you about this. You know, so of course there are different like variations. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm loving it. So talkative. This is great. Um, you know, let me just like quickly ask though, you know, is it necessarily clear which, you know, section is for recycling and for trash? You know, I mean, if we look to the right, you know, the far right for that matter, we see that there is a trash and recycling icon for that matter. So could it be assumed that that trash can to the right is both for trash and recycle, or you know, is it that, you know, is it easier to detect that the left one is for recycling? Do you think it is a good experience to have to pull, uh, you know, to pull that door open? You know, if there are any germaphobes, you know, there may be concern about touching it as opposed to just having an open lid, you know, instead of a closed. You know, like what indication is there presently that the trash can is full? Obviously, if it has an open lid, you would see that there would be trash beginning to pour out of the trash can. So is there any indication that, you know, that this trash can could be full? You know, that is something to think about, you know. You know, I mean, I could just picture a bad experience where someone opens the door, puts their stuff in it and tries to close it. However, it's extremely full that they can't close it. Um, so, you know, it's that kind of things that you have to think about. I mean, then again, you know, how would you integrate sort of a measurable scale as to like how full the trash can is? And for that matter, you know, I've seen like sort of uh, an an improvement on this kind of trash can, where as opposed to having to pull the lever, there's actual pedal at the bottom, so that you just need to put your foot down, press, and the door does open. So, okay. Now, is anyone familiar with uh, Facebook for that matter? Is this a good or bad experience, sort of using Facebook's Reels for that matter? Um, you know, is it necessarily sort of clear how to sort of use this experience for that matter? Is it clear to how to sort of stop a video, to pause a video, to um, how is it clear how to exit the videos to return back to your feed? I mean, because this is everything that you have to think about, in terms of I've had experiences where I've tried to pause the reel for that matter, and instead of pausing, it just mutes it, and that is not essentially the experience that I was expecting for that matter. I was thinking that if I tap on the screen that would pause it. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I think in this instance, to create the best experience, it would be important to essentially have an understanding of convention, sort of the best practices that are commonly integrated into, different apps and services that people use. Because it's not that you necessarily want to defy a convention. For that matter, you want to be able to identify, implement that convention. And if anything, there may be opportunities to enhance it. Yes, and so that's essentially what would happen. You essentially have to pull from the right to close. You know, And so, in talking about sort of these bad, good experiences, it's always a matter of, sort of determining, um, what is, how could you solve for a problem, and inevitably it's sort of coming up with the 4 Ds, discover, define, develop, and deliver. And sort of these different methodologies are involved in that, inevitably with having an awareness, you want to be able to identify, through research and empathy. I have to say, just nowadays, it doesn't necessarily feel that people are intrinsically empathetic. It sort of seems that now it is sort of an acquired skill and very important for UX, UI, product design, because you have to have empathy. You have to have empathy for sort of the users that you are building for, the product and services that you are developing. Know that you can never consider yourself to be the user, with you being the designer for this. You are not designing for yourself, you are designing for other people, the other target demographic for the product or service. And so, inevitably through your research, quantitative and quantitative and qualitative research, you're able to define the problem. And then essentially this is where your design, you start to ideate, and through ideating, you come up with a prototype. And through the prototyping, you may discover errors where you have to revert back to essentially research, and then you iterate on it. And then finally, the validation is where you release it to the general public. And, here are sort of the different jobs that a UX designer does, product designer. There is a lot. It is it seems like a sort of a patchwork of different tribes for that matter. Yeah, I mean, as you see here, product design, copywriting, and like the thing about, UX designers, product designers, it's not necessary that you need to focus on the breadth of product design. Essentially, it is a large umbrella for that matter. You could specialize in like specific areas of product design, whether it be visual design for that matter, information architecture in terms of sort of the hierarchy of the information. I think it's always important to have this awareness of sort of like what area you would like to specialize in, sort of what is your favorite area. Like you will be asked that essentially in interviews, what is your favorite area or part of product design or UX design for that matter. So, it's good to pinpoint that. And let me just say, it's better not to pinpoint that early on for that matter. Allow yourself to enjoy the entirety of the experience before, making an early decision for that matter. And here ultimately is the ideal design team. Though, like I'm saying earlier, it's ultimately sort of dependent on, sort of the budget and scope of a project, because it could be that rather than having a team of how many are 8, you could have a team of 2, maybe 4. It's sort of an indulgence to have a person for each one of these roles, as opposed to maybe they'll be consolidated into one role, rather than just having a user researcher, visual designer, it'll be sort of consolidated into just the product designer for that matter. Now let's just break it apart a little bit and into dissecting it, sort of exploring the different responsibilities of each role for that matter. So, here we go, user researcher, sort of they are identifying, the behaviors, needs, motivations, sort of pain points for that matter. It is their research that will ultimately drive the design process. Yes, and then information architects, they are involved in sort of categorizing for the purposes of usability and findability. It's never that you essentially want to build a product or service where it is difficult to find, say, different categories for that matter. You don't want someone to have to sort of explore, secondary or tertiary in order to accomplish one goal. You want to ensure that it is easy, that it is upfront, and inevitably, that's where you sort of design. You want to define, like, say, a primary conversion, which is a goal, a secondary, a third, because it's ultimately the primary that you want to essentially have like the most evident, though taking into considerations the second and third for that matter. Interaction designer, essentially involved in prototyping, creating engaging web for that matter. Especially, the tool that is most commonly used nowadays is either Adobe XD or Figma. In this program, we primarily focus on Figma for that matter, and you can integrate and design micro interactions, which is definitely an important skill, especially with handing it off to developers. It's good to have a little bit of awareness of JavaScript, though it is not a requirement whatsoever, especially with Figma, because it provides essentially the CSS coding for your designs, which is great. Visual designer, comes up with a holistic aesthetic, ensuring that it is essentially applicable to the entire ecosystem. And obviously, the front-end developer, they essentially are responsible for implementing your designs, ensure that it is feasible. I should say that, sites like Dribble are phenomenal. They essentially are a collection of, different people's different designs. Though the dangerous thing about Dribble is that some of the designs or animations that are integrated into the designs may not be actually feasible for the development. It may not be possible. So it is always important to, explore the web for that matter. And also apps. Know that there's not necessarily like copying or copyright infringement of like sort of designs. there are communities that you could essentially use to begin your own designs, though obviously, you will personalize it and change it based off of the objective of the project. And so that's why I encourage you. Nowadays, I think I read that people commonly only use 5 applications on their phone and not exceeding the 5 applications. And typically people hardly venture from the predictable, and so that's why they essentially only use 5. Yeah, I guess I'm curious about yourselves. Like, how many applications would you say you use on a daily basis, every day? I have a deluge of applications on my phone, and I actually try to color coordinate it, but that's not necessary for that matter. I sort of was scrolling through it, and I definitely do not use all of the applications on my phone. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. Over 5. I'm so curious, Caroline, what is your reason? And 7. Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm curious about the context that you use all of these applications. We're going to continue. Oh, this is awesome. Yes, that's such a good point. Yes. I mean, certainly the phones are, becoming more useful and handy, that rather than using, say, a DSLR camera, or for that matter, a desktop computer, you could just really rely on your phone for that matter. I was reading something that's very interesting, between smokers and sort of, people on their phones, say like just anyone using their phone, that people have a stronger like physiological addiction to their phones than sort of a person that is addicted to cigarettes. That it is harder to deprive someone of their phone than it is for someone addicted to cigarettes, because it's sort of like not only a physiological, it's a cognitive addiction to the phone. It's sort of an appendage. It's an attachment of us. Oh, now we're going to go back to content strategists. Yes, I mean, they have an understanding of the objectives and, essentially planning and developing a clear and relevant content. Here we are with the product designer. We oversee the entire design process from start to finish, for that matter, and making improvements along the way. Oh, okay, yes. Oh, that explains that. Thank you so much, Caroline. The unicorn is capable of doing everything. That essentially will cause burnout. Like, you want to avoid being burnt out, for that matter. You could potentially have an existential crisis, and that's why I mention having a speciality, for that matter. Something that you essentially enjoy. A favorite. While also having an awareness of the entirety of product design. So I'm going to show a website, and I'm curious, first what your thoughts are about it and who you think would be sort of involved in sort of in this website. So here we go. Here's this website. So, and also, what do you think the website is? What features does it utilize, for that matter? What am I scrolling through right now? What kind of company uses this? Or whose website this is? Oh, yeah. Let's just see it once more. maybe you could tell by that navigation over here. Yeah. No. Yeah, this is essentially an agency's website, for that matter, a design firm. Yeah. I mean, of course, like it includes animation. Yeah, I mean, there is music to this site. It's just, I didn't include it for that matter. Ooh, okay. So here we go. Yeah, and so, I just want to show Maslow's hierarchy of need. Essentially it just shows the criteria that people need in order to, sort of exist in this world. Physiological is sort of their being, safety, of course, belonging in a community, esteem, self-esteem for that matter, self-actualization is at the top, is self-acceptance, sort of having a positive attitude, no chips on your shoulder. And essentially we need a design for each level of this hierarchy of needs. This absolutely relates to design. This is essentially what you're designing for, to accommodate for each level here. Yeah, for people's higher needs, love and esteem. So let's see how it relates to product design. And so we have UX hierarchy of needs. And essentially there's functionality. Products should have a basic functionality in place to possess an intrinsic value. Functionality is your value proposition. Reliability is ensuring that the product or service is stable, dependable, performs consistently. We have usability, ease of use, and learnability. Of course, usability improves retention because we want people to use our application. We want to decrease the bounce rate. We want them to stay on our page. Oh, great question. I don't know, Cardi, but you will get that answer to you. Proficiency is excellence in execution. Proficiency is your competitive edge, and creativity, creates a personality. That's what you want. You want your device or service to have a personality that someone can engage with. You essentially want the product or service to replace that best friend, essentially where they have an awareness of your sort of inner feelings better than your best friend. Any questions? We're going to go on to color selection, and I love, color theory. Does anyone have a favorite color that they would like to mention? There are no wrong answers. Oh, yeah. And is that color emblematic of who you are as a person? Oh, I'm loving all these colors. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because, with color theory, it's that, the colors have an impact on people's cognitive performance because of the moods that they engender. So red helps people with their recall and attention to detail. Blue is for creativity. Yellow, if we observe, yellow is the first color that someone will see. That's the reason in stoplights, they have red, yellow, and green, like yellow being the transitional color, and people have to absolutely observe that. Then typography, huge part. I mean, it's typical that typography will take up a large amount of the real estate in sort of a website for that matter. Of course, if it is editorial, of course, but even more than that, so you really do have to take into typography, and it should not be underestimated the importance of your selection of your font family, font styling, the weight of your font, the kerning, which is the spacing between the letters. You have control over this. This is your selection. This is your design, and you need to have justification for it. You want to ensure that essentially a skinny 1 aligns with like an obese 8, that it is on the same line of a chart. So let's look into this. So a meme, I think I pronounced it right. Here's the definition so that there's not any confusion as to, not that I mean this to be sort of like, oh, can you memorize this word? However, what I want to look into is here are different font families to that word. Do you have a favorite? Does one stand out? What do you think would be more helpful sort of in the font family that would help you recall the meaning of the word? Is there one font family that is more enjoyable to read for that matter? Is it because what you want to ensure with typography is that it absolutely is readable. That's the first and primary focus of typography. You want it to be readable. Second is sort of that it's a delight to read. Oh yeah. Yeah, and I mean with website design, it's really dependent on a serif, sans serif font family for that matter. Oh yeah, there seems to be a common consensus. Yeah, Mark Felt. Okay. Yeah. So does anyone have any questions? That's basically it. And I just want to say that, ultimately, if you do have any questions, of course you can convey it. Yeah, and that's basically it. I'm going to stop sharing because I'm afraid that if I continue to play this GIF, it won't be helpful. It won't be as enjoyable. So I'm going to stop. Oh, yes, and there's my email address. I forgot. Okay. Oh, thank you so much.
Does anybody have any questions?
Oh.
Some examples of projects you've worked on.
So, you can see examples of my projects on my website. The website is, I'll be typing it in here. Okay. So that is my website that you could visit. I would say that, other projects that I have worked on, of course, there is NDA compliancy, so I cannot show those projects. Oh, yes. Okay. So Casey, I think ultimately that is dependent. I think one of the most important things is to, with applying to jobs, to apply. You don't need to necessarily wait to have like 3 projects. You could start applying with 1. Obviously, the goal is to essentially have 3 projects on your portfolio. And I think it's also a question about time. If you do want to start from scratch, like measure the level of effort. Do you have enough time that you could commit that effort, or whether it would be more important to save time by using a templated site. Oh, I mean, ultimately, let me just say, it's ultimately dependent on, say, the industry that you want to work in, and sort of the team size. So in no way can I sort of narrowly say that it is this one position. In no way can I say that. It's ultimately dependent. This is what it's ultimately dependent on: the experience that you have. The more experience that you have, the more potentially you will be paid. I should add, though, if you work as a product designer in pharmaceuticals, they tend to pay more. Though that is no encouragement to work in pharmaceuticals, because they say that's where creativity dies. Yes, yeah, it absolutely comes with its cost. That's not to be discourage working in pharmaceuticals, because they ultimately do need designs. However, just have that awareness. Did you use React or WordPress or what? Oh yes, thank you so much, Casey. No, it's not personal. I used Webflow. Though, I mean, obviously there are great plugins that you could use for WordPress as well. Yeah, Webflow. Yeah, something to explore, absolutely. Essentially, they advertise it that you don't necessarily need coding. Obviously, there is a learning curve to it. Yeah, definitely check it out.
On our YouTube channel, we did a workshop on Figma to Webflow. I'll drop that YouTube link in the chat and you can check that up. Also, there's another question. It says, in the professional world, how much knowledge is required to be eligible for a product manager?
Oh, I mean, I cannot give you an exact number for that matter, because ultimately it could be that depending on the project that you've worked on, or the projects. Let's say if you worked on a long-term project for a major company, that may lead you to work as a product manager. And I should say that they're two different positions. So there is the product manager and then the product designer. You could ultimately become advanced in product design, that you then manage people. And there are different names for that ultimately. It's so funny. Like if you look on LinkedIn for different positions, there's so many different names for the exact same thing. Product design, you could look up interaction designer, you could look up UX designer, because essentially if you check, the responsibilities across all of these positions are the same thing.
Did we get to Faith's question? What is a good way to get experience under your belt in lieu of an entry-level job that may not take a risk on someone without education?
Yeah. So let me just say this. I mean, they're essentially design exercise sites that you could essentially work on to develop sort of projects that you've worked on. There are also other sites, that essentially, though I do not know the name of it, that essentially you could sign up as a beginner, where there's the awareness that you're just starting, where you could actually work for actual companies. Oh, so Casey, in terms of I mean, it's sort of like development is a bit different. So I'm not going to suggest that I am an expert in that. I know like Python and React, absolutely. Though I can't necessarily say for sure. Inevitably, it absolutely helps to have an awareness of different codes. It is not a bad thing then to propose that you specialize in specific ones, though that you still know the other codes. Oh, it doesn't have to be a last question. We're not keeping track. There's no limits.
Did we talk about the most difficult concept in your opinion to learn in UX?
Oh, we did not. We did not. I think that's definitely dependent on sort of who you are, the experience that you have, inevitably, say if you are consider yourself or, your favorite part is sort of visual design, then it may become more difficult to essentially do research, because it is heavily focused on writing for that matter, and there are specific kinds of questions that you need to focus on, like in terms of the user interview or user survey. It is important to focus on open-ended and avoid leading questions. You want to not say yes no questions in, say, a user interview. So you want to ensure that that they are open-ended. So that could come a little difficult. Then other times, which for some people, it could be sort of with color theory for that matter, ensuring that you utilize the right pairing of colors, and also ensuring that they are accessible, for so you want to avoid sort of a low contrast, and you want to ensure that you have a high contrast.
Looks like somebody's interested in knowing if you're going to be teaching an upcoming, they said camp, but yeah, if you're going to be teaching an upcoming cohort.
Oh, yeah. So yes, I am, the program is broken out into two types of programs. So there is, and you will you will find out more about that. But I teach the Flex program, so I am the lead instructor in the Flex program, and yes, I will. If you join the Flex program, I will be your instructor.
Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful night. Bye, y'all.
Yeah, have a great night. Yeah, thank you so much for coming.